Mental illness encompasses a lot of different things, and really it depends on who you're talking to as to what mental illness really means. It can be something as serious as a brain disorder, biochemical, could be a personality disorder where a person's behavior is not conforming to societal norms. Can also include developmental disorders, intellectual developmental disorders, used to be called mental retardation.
A recovery approach, again, involves more than simply control of symptoms. It involves collaboration with the patient, helping the patient to define what their role is, what their goals are, and how they meet those goals. Sometimes those goals can be very simple things, and someone may say, look, I want to learn how to form friendships more easily. Or a patient might say, look, I want to get on an exercise program so that I can get in better shape. If that is the patient's goal, then we support that and we help them to achieve that goal and have that sense of power that they are actually in control of their lives.
Major depression is a condition where there's a certain set of symptoms that if you have enough of these symptoms for long enough, it's called major depression. So you look at sleep patterns, you look at appetite, lack of desire for pleasurable things, like getting out and doing fun things. People often think of suicide when they have major depression, and it's a very serious illness. Sometimes people don't sleep very well at night. They have guilt, they ruminate, they worry about things. Their appetite is off. Maybe sometimes they'll eat too much, they won't eat enough. As I said, they sometimes become suicidal because they feel like there's no hope, there's nothing left. They don't think as clearly as they might otherwise would have. There are times where people with major depression are sometimes mistaken for people developing a dementia. And so if you treat their depression, the dementia, which is really what is called a pseudo-dementia, goes away, it gets better.
I do cry a lot when I'm extremely depressed. I'm extremely tired. I can sleep all day, sleep all night. I have real irrational thoughts. Like if there's an airplane crash, well, if I wasn't such a bad person, that wouldn't have happened. And that's irrational. We all know that's irrational. I get extremely fatigued. It's almost everything's a chore. Just letting the dog out's a chore. Pouring the cat some water is a chore. No reason to live. You can't remember why you're supposed to enjoy life. People say enjoy life, and you can't remember why. What is there to enjoy?
Bipolar disorder is what can also be referred to as manic depression. And essentially it's, as the name implies, bipolar, highs and lows. The most prominent symptoms of bipolar disorder are the manic episodes where someone is very elevated mood, don't need a lot of sleep, thoughts are racing, they might think that they're coming up with the greatest idea that's ever come out in the world, and it really is kind of an odd, unusual, implausible idea. And again, the depressive episodes where the person is very down, depressed, doesn't want to get out of bed, sleeps all the time, maybe even thinking about suicide.
The first thing that happens is you get excited or hyper, okay? The next thing that happens is that you progress into a type of mania, or which is being hyper. The next thing that happens is you have delusions at times. Delusions varying from that you're a cop or you're something like that, to that you're actually God or Jesus Christ walking on the face of the earth. The exhaustion follows, because while you're in that state, you have no need for sleep. Your need for sleep is very minimal. And you get terribly exhausted, but you have a drive and you go on and on and on. I was so depressed at one time, like I'd said, that I wouldn't leave the house. And I just watched TV from 5 in the afternoon to 5 in the morning, go to sleep, get up at 5 o'clock, and around I was too depressed. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't function.
Schizophrenia is a mental illness in which one has distortions of thinking, such that they may hear voices of people who are not there. They may feel that others are controlling them. They may have unusual beliefs, for example, that others are spying on them or are trying to harm them.
Schizophrenia is essentially being out of touch with reality, having hallucinations, different perceptions, delusions, believing something's true when it's not. And so it can, from what I understand, it can be a very scary experience because what is going on around you, you can't really tell what's real, what's not real. And sometimes reality is scary enough by itself, but to have a psychotic episode, I can't even imagine how scary that might be.
And have a lot of hallucinations, auditory mostly, some visual. And it's hard to focus on anything because there's so much noise up there. It's really hard. Because it doesn't, my therapist will just say, tell them to shut up, so I'll just shut up, and just leave me alone.
I go to a movie because I have movies out of myself to convert people to be saved in God's.
Okay. So movies isn't one of your favorite things to do. What about like cooking? Do you enjoy cooking? We talked about cooking a little bit, but do you do that?
I go to the movies. I think it's all right to convert people because all the people go to the movies and they might not see it on television. And I used to sit by the waterfalls, and I wouldn't leave, till the sunset.
Okay,
it was
so
beautiful.
You must really like doing that. What about like going to movies and stuff? What kind of movies do you like to see?
I don't believe in going to movies, but if it's if you're in Rome,
So you don't particularly go for that, but you're willing to go along with the group. Here, can you look at me?
No, please.
No, it's
really
really important that you look at me.
Please. Okay.
Please look at me.
In borderline personality disorder, typically the person has had some sort of trauma, for example, sexual or physical abuse earlier in life. This causes them to have impulsivity in terms of mood swings, usually of brief duration, impulsivity in terms of behavior, which can include sexual, substance abuse, spending money you don't have. It can make you frightened that others are going to abandon you and leave you alone in life, a very dangerous and frightening place in which people may harm you. You may have difficulty with anger, you may have self-harm behaviors, you may have recurrent suicidal ideas. I think the first thing to remember about taking care of people who have mental illness is that they are people who happen to have mental illness. And so we must recognize their humanity, and we must recognize that our job is to work with them, to collaborate with them, so that they have an active part in what their goals are, what their treatment recovery is going to look like.